When I came back to my small cabin on Cedar Bay, I found a slip of paper taped to my front door. No knock, no heads up, just a cold warning that I had 30 days to clear out. It felt like I was some trespasser who had stumbled into the wrong place. Honestly, I almost kept the notice as a trophy. When local committees get drunk on their own little authority, they think a piece of paper and some fines can rewrite reality. Trust me, this kind of power trip never ends quietly. If you've ever seen a neighborhood board cross the line, you know they're more like turf enforcers than community helpers. The woman leading this charge was Diane Rowe, president of the Cedar Bay Property Owners Association. She saw my old cabin as an eyesore that ruined her pristine lakeside image. Sweetly misguided, she believed a little bullying would make me disappear. She didn't realize I'd already done my homework. By sunset that day, the fight was no longer about paint colors or lawn height. It was a battle over who actually owned the land beneath everyone's feet. I never thought I'd become a cabin owner. My life in Portland as a land surveyor kept me busy enough, mapping property lines for builders and private owners. But 3 months ago, when my grandfather, James Caldwell, passed away, he left me his lakeside retreat on Cedar Bay. That cabin was where I spent summers as a kid, fishing, swimming, and learning about nature. Grandpa James was a man of few words but strong principles, especially when it came to land. Learn your land, Mason, he'd say, every inch, because if you don't, someone else will take it. At the time, I didn't fully get what he meant. The cabin was simple, a 2-bedroom wooden house from the 1950s, with a stone chimney and a wide porch overlooking the water. Not fancy like the newer lake houses nearby, but full of character and history. The first weekend I moved in, neighbors eyed my beat-up old pickup like it belonged to a different era. It was another hand-me-down from Grandpa. No sleek SUVs around here. As I carried boxes inside, a tall woman with tightly pulled-back brown hair and sharp eyes approached me. "You must be James Caldwell's grandson," she said, offering a cold handshake. "I'm Diane Rowe, president of the Cedar Bay Property Owners Association. Sorry about your grandfather. He was unique." That hesitation on the last word told me she didn't exactly admire him. "I hear you're planning renovations," she continued, scanning my cabin with a thinly veiled scowl. "Our community standards have changed a lot since your grandfather built that place. We expect all visible homes to meet certain appearances." Her tone was firm. "Also, that old truck? It'll have to go into the garage or out of sight. Vintage vehicles like that aren't allowed parked openly." Before I could reply, she turned on her heel, phone already out to snap photos. A friendly voice called from the next house over. "Don't mind Diane," said a woman with warm eyes and a welcoming smile. "I'm Annie Peterson. Diane likes to wield her little authority like a weapon. Your grandpa was one of the good ones around here. He never backed down." Annie filled me in. Diane and her husband had moved in 5 years ago and quickly taken control of the association, pushing out longtime residents with endless rule changes and fines. Grandpa James was the only one who stood firm. "Be careful," Annie warned. "They have big plans for the lake, and your grandfather's land is the last piece that doesn't fit." That night, I searched through Grandpa's old study and found decades of records. Surveys, legal papers, and letters with the property association. The HOA had slowly tried to chip away at his land through new rules and easements, but what stunned me were the original deeds. Grandpa owned not just the cabin's lot. He held title to 60% of Cedar Bay itself, including the northern shore, the community dock, and even the land beneath the HOA clubhouse. I remembered being 12, fishing from that dock with him when a slick man in a suit had approached. He'd offered Grandpa enough money to live comfortably forever if he sold the land. Grandpa refused, saying, "One day you'll understand why I never gave up a single inch, Mason." My thoughts were cut short by the doorbell. On my porch was a thick envelope marked Cedar Bay Property Owners Association, an official notice listing every violation on my property, demanding $18,000 in repairs within 30 days. I laughed at the absurdity just as my phone buzzed. Annie texted, "Got the same notice. Meeting tomorrow night. You should come." The next evening at the community clubhouse, a fancy building with glass walls and expensive decor, I took a seat in the back. Diane stood at the podium, flanked by a stern older man introduced as their legal advisor. She clicked through slides showing pristine lakefront homes, then stopped at a grainy picture of my cabin. "This property," she said without looking my way, "requires major improvements to meet our standards." Murmurs swept the room, some pity, others judgment. The lawyer explained their enforcement plan: fines escalating to liens, forced compliance, and costs billed to homeowners. I raised my hand. "My cabin is in great shape," I said calmly. "It's well-maintained, eco-friendly with native plants preventing erosion, and it holds historic value. Many of your demands would erase its character." Diane smiled tightly. "Your grandfather had exceptions, but they don't transfer with ownership. The board's decision is final unless 2/3 of homeowners overturn it." After the meeting, a man introduced himself as Greg Lawson, also on the board but frustrated with Diane's tactics. "They want Silver Bay perfect for a new luxury development on the hill," he confided. "Your cabin clashes with their image. If you need help, call me." I hired an attorney, Rebecca Mills, who reviewed the documents with growing interest. "Your grandfather's records are rock solid. You own far more than that lot." We started gathering evidence. When a landscaping crew showed up to plant shrubs on my land without permission, I asked them to stop. The next day, a fine hit my mailbox for interfering with approved maintenance. Violation notices piled up. My truck was suddenly a prohibited recreational vehicle, my woodpile labeled a fire hazard, even bird feeders deemed illegal. Fines grew from $100 to $500 per infraction. One evening, while walking the shore, I spotted small cameras hidden in the trees, aimed at my cabin. I sent photos to Rebecca. "This is harassment," she said. "We'll include it in our case." I found Diane photographing my property line with a smug grin one afternoon. The battle was escalating. Then came the break-in. Someone smashed a kitchen window, rifled through my grandfather's files, and stole key documents. The security footage caught an unmistakable figure. It was the HOA's lawyer, Mark Evans. With the hearing approaching, despair nearly took hold. But then Annie called with a breakthrough. Frank Miller, the local historian, had unearthed certified county records confirming my grandfather's lakebed purchase during a 1970 drought, proof the HOA couldn't challenge. At the hearing, Diane's attorney argued my claims were outdated and disruptive. Rebecca methodically dismantled their case, presenting official records and testimonies, including footage of Mark breaking in and HOA fines being misused. Even Annie testified about pollution from the luxury development contaminating the lake, backed by her students' data. When Thomas Rowe, Diane's husband and the developer behind the new Silver Ridge community, cornered me in the hallway, he offered double what Grandpa had refused. I declined. The commissioner ruled in my favor, invalidating all HOA fines and confirming my ownership, including the dock and clubhouse land. The case was referred for criminal investigation into the HOA's financial and legal misconduct. Diane and Thomas resigned amid the fallout. The HOA's new board, led by Greg, negotiated a fair lease for the clubhouse land and agreed to environmental protections. I restored the cabin, adding solar panels and native landscaping. Neighbors followed suit, moving away from artificial lawns. 1 year later, the community gathered to rename the dock Caldwell Pier, honoring my grandfather. Watching children fish where I once had, I felt the quiet strength of preserving what matters. Not for money, but for legacy. Years of conflict had forged more than just legal victories. It rekindled the community's respect for its roots and natural beauty. Mason's fight wasn't just about property lines. It was a stand for legacy, integrity, and balance between progress and preservation. Cedar Bay's future now gleamed brighter, with neighbors inspired to protect their shared heritage. As the sun set over Caldwell Pier, Mason felt a deep peace, knowing he honored his grandfather's vision. In a world rushing toward change, sometimes the greatest strength lies in standing firm to safeguard what truly matters. This was more than a cabin. It was a symbol of resilience.